Welcome to Better Life. Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're breaking down the extreme transformation and the exact mental strategies of a guy who is widely considered the toughest man alive, David Goggins. We're going to unpack the core concepts behind his absolutely wild journey to give you a real, actionable toolkit for mental toughness that you can literally start using today.
We've got to start with a pretty staggering number, 135. That's 135 kilograms. That was the weight of a 24-year-old Goggins. At the time, he was a depressed pest controller, he had asthma, he was dealing with a rare genetic blood condition, and honestly, he was just entirely defeated by life. You know, it's almost impossible to imagine the toughest man on earth starting from a place that was so incredibly dark, aimless, and physically compromised.
So what sparked the change? Well, a single Navy SEAL documentary triggered what looks like a completely impossible timeline of transformation. Think about this massive jump. He goes from a 135-kilo pest controller to dropping an unbelievable 50 kilos in just 3 months. And then, he didn't just pass Navy SEAL Hell Week, which, by the way, physically and mentally breaks about 75% of candidates on their very first try. He's survived that brutal week 3 separate times. Today, he holds world records and has crushed over 60 ultramarathons.
To put that into perspective, he went from struggling to just get through a normal daily routine to running the Badwater 135. That's a grueling 217-kilometer foot race in 55 degrees Celsius heat out in Death Valley, basically running inside an oven. It completely proves that extreme change is, without a doubt, possible. But how on earth did he do it? Because it definitely wasn't just physical strength. It was a complete rewiring of his brain. To really understand how he built this kind of superhuman willpower, we've distilled his journey down into a specific toolkit. Today in this explainer, we're covering discipline over motivation, the accountability mirror, pushing past mental limits, fueling your mental engine, and finally, finding your deepest why. Let's start with a massive paradigm shift. All right, Section 1, discipline over motivation. Before you can use any mental tool, you've got to understand the true fuel that actually powers it.
Look, relying on motivation is a massive trap. Motivation is basically like the electricity coming into your house from the grid. It's awesome when it's there, right? The lights are on, you feel great, you're ready to go, but it's unpredictable, and it's based entirely on your emotions. The second that power gets cut, everything stops. Discipline, on the other hand, is your reliable battery backup. It doesn't care if it's pouring rain outside, if you're sad, or if you just really don't feel like putting in the work. It is entirely mood independent. It's that mother waking up at 4 a.m. to feed her baby, or delivery workers navigating through a literal monsoon. They aren't motivated, they are disciplined.
And here's the thing. Discipline is a learned skill. It's not some innate talent you're just born with. Just like breaking a stone, it takes relentless, repetitive strikes against all of life's distractions. You could hit a stone 99 times and see absolutely zero cracks, nothing. But on that 100th strike, it shatters. Now the magic wasn't the final blow, was it? No. It was the 99 unseen, totally unglamorous, highly disciplined strikes that came right before it.
So, how do you actually pick up that hammer and start swinging? Well, that brings us to Section 2, the accountability mirror.
Goggins literally stood in front of a physical mirror and just confronted his deepest, darkest flaws. He called out his laziness, his weight, his wasted potential out loud. Why? Because, as he perfectly puts it, denial is the ultimate comfort zone. Hiding behind your excuses, blaming your boss, your childhood, or your current circumstances, that just keeps you completely stagnant.
The logic here is super simple, but man, is it harsh. Step 1 is accountability. You face that mirror and you stop lying to yourself. Period. Doing that forces step 2, which is responsibility. You actually own the flaws. Once you finally accept that you are the problem, you immediately unlock step 3, possibility. Because if you're the root of the problem, well, guess what? You're also the solution. It's a really tough conversation to have with yourself, but it's the exact moment true personal growth kicks off.
Once you've set your path, things are inevitably going to get hard, which leads us to Section 3, pushing past mental limits.
I absolutely love this next concept because it calls out a massive biological lie. It's called the 40% rule. It's this psychological reality that when your brain is literally screaming at you to quit, telling you that you are completely, utterly exhausted and can't take another step, you are actually only at about 40% of your true physical and mental capacity. That overwhelming urge to quit, yeah, it's often just a mental stop sign, not a physical one.
Think of your brain kind of like the dashboard in your car. When the fuel gauge hits empty and flashes 0 kilometers left, the car doesn't just instantly shut down on the highway. The manufacturer intentionally built in a reserve tank. Well, your brain is programmed by evolution to protect you from discomfort, so it throws up that warning light way, way too early. If you can recognize this and just push past that initial empty sign, you get to access this incredible hidden reserve tank of strength.
So, the big question, how do you tap into that reserve tank on demand? You do it through a process called callousing the mind. Think about a laborer's hands. They build these thick, physical calluses from hard work to prevent blisters, right? Well, you can proactively build mental toughness in the exact same way, by intentionally seeking out discomfort.
We're talking about adopting micro-hardships into your daily routine. That means taking a freezing cold shower, completely eliminating junk food, waking up at 4 a.m., or just forcing yourself to do that one really tedious task you've been actively avoiding. By doing this every single day, you are literally training your brain. You're conditioning your mind so that when the major life challenges inevitably hit, your brain is already super comfortable with being uncomfortable. Instead of running away from the challenge, it steps right up.
But hey, even with mental calluses, you still need a way to keep moving forward when things get really dark. Let's look at Section 4, Fueling Your Mental Engine.
Enter the cookie jar. This is a pretty amazing tool. It's an imaginary jar in your mind where you actively store your greatest past victories, your proudest moments, and all the hardest struggles you've ever managed to survive. Maybe you lost a business but clawed your way back, or maybe you passed an impossibly hard exam. When you're in the middle of extreme hardship and an awful self-doubt starts creeping in, reaching into this mental jar instantly shifts your brain's chemistry. It pulls you right out of self-doubt and dumps you back into self-belief.
Now, to manage the actual execution of this, you have to heavily leverage the power of small wins. You set a massive ambition, sure, but then you immediately break it down into daily, bite-sized micro goals. During Seal Hell Week, Goggins wasn't focused on surviving the whole agonizing week. Thinking about that would crush anyone mentally. Instead, it's step 2, focus only on the next immediate task. Just survive until the next drill. Just secure the next meal. And then, step 4, celebrate that small win. Those tiny, continuous ticks on your to-do list, they build absolutely unstoppable momentum.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Finding Your Deepest Why. Because honestly, without this, every single tool we've talked about is eventually going to run dry.
To sustain extreme discipline long-term, you just cannot rely on surface-level desires. Saying something like, "I want to get fit," is definitely not enough to drag you out of a warm bed at 4 a.m. in the freezing rain. You have to repeatedly question your motives. Step 1, state the goal. Step 2, ask why. Okay, maybe it's to prioritize health. Then step 3, ask why again. Keep digging. Maybe it's to actually feel confident, to stop feeling invisible, or to make sure you're around for your family. That deep emotional core, that is your true why, and it is literally the only thing strong enough to keep you moving forward when everything hurts.
Which brings us to the ultimate question you have to ask yourself right now. What is your deepest why? And are you ready to finally face that mirror today? Don't sit around waiting for the perfect time to start. Pick just one of these tools today, whether it's the cold shower, the cookie jar, or just being brutally honest with your reflection, and make the time right. The absolute hardest battle you will ever fight is the one against the voice in your own head telling you it's totally okay to stay exactly as you are. So are you going to let it win?